Hi, I'm Becca, Communications Coordinator at the Solid Ground program, which is part of UConn Extension. You might see me out and about at events or visiting local farms, and one of the things that I'm always seeing is that farmers have a lot on their plate. Farming in Connecticut can be a stressful occupation. Not only are you managing multiple tasks of running a small business, but you also have the constantly fluctuating surprises of nature and the intense demands the work asks of your body. Because we have to juggle our markets, our personal lives, and the care of plants or livestock that are in our possession, it makes it easy to forget to care for ourselves. So I wanted to talk to a couple farmers to think about what does it look like to fit some self-care into our crazy schedules.
Peace everybody, my name is Dishaun Harris, but better known around here as Farmer D. I've been urban farming in New Haven, Connecticut for the past 13 years. I farm at 3 different community spaces that are outdoors. This is one of them, the 333 Valley Street Farm.
So urban farming has its own kind of stressors when you are trying to get your business on out here that are very unique and different from like a suburban or rural area.
Yes.
So what do you think the sort of stressors are that urban farmers in Connecticut are facing, and like how do you deal with them?
That's a very good question. One of the first things that we're dealing with is zoning regulations from the local municipality. Green spaces are not as welcome or desired from local municipalities as like residential spaces are. So if they're like empty spaces and empty lots that can be turned into a green space that's not being used, people don't really want to see agriculture there. A lot of times the zoning laws can be kind of harsh also with like animals. A lot of people may not like to hear a rooster at 5 in the morning, which is real, right? And so like there's a certain level of balance that you have to deal with in urban areas because you're right next to your neighbor, unlike a rural area where you might not see your neighbor for acres. And so these things can be like crazy barriers, along with I'm farming as a black individual in America, so there's a lot of setbacks already. So it's even harder to get land.
So obviously you have a couple of different things that you kind of keep in mind in regards to self-care, but do you have any specific sort of practices that you keep, habits that really you try to integrate into your life to make sure that you can deal with the stress of running all this stuff?
Yes, indeed. So there are a few practices that I like to keep. One is because I live so close to West Rock State Park, I like to every morning go and hike up to the summit. And when I walk into the park, there's like this huge rock. It's so like majestic, and I hug on the rock and I put out positive affirmations on the rock. And then I hug a few trees that are right next to it, and then I just hike up to the summit. I try to go around like sunrise energy. You could like sun gaze during that time, so it's like a beautiful moment, and you get to see the whole city. You can see like the connectiveness a lot better than if you're like down on the ground. There's an ability in the forest that I've noticed. It has the ability to transmute energy. It's so vast and so powerful and so strong that anything I bring to it, it'll take it and just transmute it into its ecosystem and repurpose it for what it needs to be repurposed for. And then also just being with the youth, like seeing the youth. I've facilitated like learning in agriculture for at least over 600 youth at this point in my life in New Haven. And that matters a lot because I'm from New Haven and I was one of those youth. And so like seeing that like full exchange and seeing that, you know, even in the urban area, there's an interest and there's a love for growing your own food, and even learning how to make money off of growing your own food, and learning about the health benefits of growing your own food, and learning about nature in general. Helping to facilitate that like warms my heart and makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm doing something that is changing the world, you know? I also think that it's important to keep streams of revenue diversified, especially as an urban farmer. You know, there are small spaces that I grow on, so it's definitely not like the big, only growing about a half an acre. And so you have to do a lot with that in small space. So vertical growing is definitely a big thing in the indoor space. So, you know, if my woodchuck comes and eats the, you know, $500 worth of collard greens that I had growing out here. Up until that point, I was teaching youth and hosting demonstrations and things like that. Maybe even use some of that for myself for like cooking demonstrations and things like that. And I'm getting paid for all that in different revenue streams or different avenues of revenue. Making sure that my financial stability is, all my eggs are not in one basket, right, is very important indeed.
And one of the things that you've told me before is, we treat our plants and our animals and our farms with such care that we should, do the same for ourselves.
Indeed, I agree. How we're weeding right now and clearing out that space, clear out your mental space, Pick out the things that don't need to be there, that just will naturally grow in the background. It was seeded maybe a week ago and it's been on your mind and it's starting to fester more and more. Now it's like heavy on your heart, and take some time to actually go through and process things and start to pick out the things that aren't relevant, to you and who you are or beyond your control, and focus on the things that are, and focus on the innovativeness of what you can do with the things that are. That's very important. Tending to ourselves like we tend to the crops. We are all a part of the earth, and we all need that tending too.
Well, thank you. I mean, yeah, there's so much more we could talk about.
Hi, I'm Yoko Takemura from Assawaga Farm. We are in Putnam, Connecticut. We're a diversified organic vegetable and cut flower farm, and we sell our vegetables through our weekly farm stand and a farmer's market in Boston.
So, for farmers, we constantly have a lot to do, busy all the time, constantly tired because of the manual component of our work. So, do you have any self-care practices to help yourself keep healthy?
This is our 6th season, so I think we're, steadily making progress on self-care. And honestly, the first few years is just hard. It's hard to make time, make yourself a really nice meal, but we're definitely able to do that now, and I feel like that's the biggest form of self-care. So making, having enough energy and time to make a nice dinner. And a lot of vegetable farmers get into farming because they love to eat these delicious things that we're growing, and that's just pure joy when we can have enough time to make ourselves a nice meal, and that's definitely my barometer for giving myself good self-care. I started growing a dye garden that's kind of part of the farm. Being able to capture color that comes from what we grew on our farm onto a piece of cloth and be able to make art with it and be able to kind of gift it to family or friend in Japan is kind of like what I think is so magical about natural dyeing. I love farming and I don't want to do anything else with my life, but at the same time I don't want to just be identified as a farmer. I've got other hobbies too. When I'm able to do other things other than farming, that's awesome. I wouldn't say this is just Connecticut, but any farmer is obviously dealing with things that are completely out of their control. And the biggest thing that comes to mind is weather and just the climate, overall, just shifting to more extreme weather events. And the weather then affects how many people come to market. And sometimes, you're harvesting in extremely hot and humid, just terrible conditions. And then you hope that people come out to, buy those vegetables that you work so hard to, harvest. It's not all bad, news. Obviously, we get into farming because of how beautiful it is to work with nature and to see things grow and to feed people and see the smiles on, people's faces. So there's a lot of beauty, but definitely tons of stress.
So do you feel like there are some main supports that you really look to in your life that really kind of help you make this happen?
I would say 99% of my support on the farm, the day-to-day, is Alex, my husband, my partner in life, partner in farming. Anytime one of us is having a hard time or running into a roadblock or something, we go to the other and we know how to solve things together and just make each other feel better. I've got farmer friends that I can call anytime. And then there are the people that are even farther away, like my parents in Japan, even my friends in Japan. They're all huge supporters of our farm.
All of these self-care things are great, but sometimes we just end up struggling anyways, even if we have the best things in mind. So is there anything in particular that you would suggest to a farmer who is maybe struggling and doesn't feel like they have the supports, doesn't really know what to do?
Don't bite off more than you can chew. That's just one way to really quickly put more stress on yourself. So I sometimes see people just trying to do everything all at once right from the beginning. And, you know, you're going to run out of steam quickly and things are just going to start to fall apart. And it's so stressful to see that in a farm. So just kind of cut out all the excess, just find what your core business is and really perfect that first.
I really appreciate you sharing some of your experiences and thoughts, and we all need to, we're in the process together, learning how to care for ourselves while we're also caring for our communities by farming and providing. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, many of us know of self-care practices we should be doing to deal with our stress, but that doesn't always mean we do it. I'll be the first to say that I get overwhelmed at times and need a little extra support. And that's why the Connecticut Department of Agriculture has created the website ctfarmstressrelief.com. When you feel overwhelmed by your to-do list, your personal life, or the ups and downs of farming, there are resources compiled in one easy place to navigate. And if you feel unsafe and don't feel like you can do this anymore, there's the Agri-Stress Helpline, where you can talk to a trained professional if you're in a crisis. It's free and confidential. Or you can call 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. When we often spend our days working solitarily in our fields or with our animals, remember that you are not alone. Our whole community wants to see farmers not just grow but thrive. If we practice not just taking care of our farms, but also ourselves, we might just have a chance to do both.